Okay, so Saturday night talk. Last night was the lunar observance night talk. So I thought I would build off of Ajahn Krunadhammo's talk last night, or riff off of Ajahn Krunadhammo's talk last night, or rip off Ajahn Krunadhammo's. I was thinking of last night, Ajahn Krunadhammo just emphasizing the importance and necessity of the building of the kusala, that momentum of kusala dhammas and the wholesome states, wholesome qualities, and the relinquishing and the overcoming of the unwholesome, the unskillful. And there are many ways to do that, but one of the ways that came to mind that I thought I would talk about tonight is metta. Loving kindness is the ordinary translation. And just that cultivation of that quality of metta is extraordinarily wholesome and skillful, and it tends to provide a counterpoint to the unskillful, not just say aversion, ill will, anger, negativity. I mean, although it's a direct counterpoint to that, but it can also be a great way of focusing attention for, say, restlessness or doubt. It's not a great antidote to lust, but it's not off the table completely, but it generally. But that because it is so wholesome, or say sleepiness and drowsiness, there's that countering of the obstacles or hindrances to what is skillful in the heart, and obstacles and hindrances to stable mind states, obstacles to samadhi, so that the cultivating of loving kindness is both that momentum of what is skillful and wholesome, uplifts the mind, it brightens the mind, but it's also a it's excellent, stellar bridge for taking the mind to a place of stillness, because it is so wholesome, and sometimes that's where it's useful in conjunction with mindfulness of breathing, is using that feeling of loving kindness, the quality of the wholesome mental state of and bright quality of loving kindness, and using it as a bridge to help to settle the mind, still the mind, coalesce the mind, so that it comes together in samadhi. It easily fulfills those say factors of just that vitaka vichara, using thought, because sometimes we shy away from thought, or afraid was, I've got to stop thinking. In order to be peaceful, I've got to stop thinking. But in reality, it's more like, how do I use the thought in a skillful way so that it settles and stabilizes the heart. So that loving kindness is a good emotional tone to be able to settle and so that lifting up of these thoughts of loving kindness, that sustaining that thought process on the metta nimitta or metta image, metta mood, and then it helps to bring about that settled quality and focus, that directed attention and evaluation, where one's just modulating the thought so that it helps to elicit a sense of well-being, and then then that well-being is a bridge to piti and sukha, and then to with that quality of well-being, then it can sustain itself around that. So it's like using both that metta bhavana in conjunction with the breath to help focus or settle or allow the mind to, because there's also a sense of fullness that comes that allows the mind to really settle. And it's really just to play with it, to experiment and just sort of, because so often we can be a bit either too rigid or too tight in trying to make the mind settle, rather than say like allowing the mind to settle or facilitating the mind so that it does settle. And it's just to experiment with that, to play with that, and especially with that mood of loving kindness. I think it's again, this is something what one can be cultivating in terms of just a day-to-day mood and perception, so that one is greeting the moment with kindness rather than resentment and negativity. It's a nicer way to live, but also that extrapolating it into the meditation itself, and it's a really skillful tool for helping the facilitating the mind to really settle, because as those hindrances, desire of ill will or negative irritation, of just sleepiness and drowsiness, where one is drifting. So often we can so easily drift in meditation, and it's important that we have a good focus that give the energy of what is skillful and wholesome is really a great impetus, and also that countering the restlessness, because there's laying a foundation of well-being in the heart, and it's again because of the positive, wholesome qualities. It feels good, so that doubt and skepticism is tends to drop away. And of course, it has to be. You have to make it real, because if you're just trying to prop up a feeling, may everybody be happy, may be nice to each other. Nice thought, but it's hard to maintain it, because you get skeptical, or I would anyway. And I think that to recognize that metta is maybe better translated as well-wishing or goodwill. It's related to the metta and metta are to be. Metta is a friend, and especially in the like loving kindness was one of the very early translations of metta, and it stuck in the English language. But it's also a word in the English language that's really fraught. As soon as you start talking about loving this and loving that, it gets kind of messy, and because it's so loosely kind of defined. I mean, you have the love one has one's to parents, or one has a love in terms of sexual attraction, or one has love in terms of I love pizza, and it's just it's just got such a hopeless range that it's just confusing. So that sense that metta is much more a quality of goodwill, to be a good friend to oneself and be a good friend to others, to wish oneself well and wish others well, to wish that they do experience happiness, and that they do experience peace and live at ease. That's it's a really sincere wish. That is the heart of metta, as opposed to a kind of loose or ill-defined love, and I mean, that's why it's ended up a compound word, loving kindness, because even in the early translators had a hard time trying to come up with a word that fit. But in as we work with it, and also just in terms of the when one sees some of the descriptions of loving kindness, say like in the Buddha's words on loving kindness, it says, "Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease." I mean, it's a very beautiful wish, and it really has that feeling of you're wishing the best for someone, wishing that one has that hope or aspiration that they really do experience that sense of happiness, ease, safety, security. That's a very mature wish, and it's also And all beings includes us as well. It's really important to recognize that especially in the descriptions of the cultivation of loving kindness in the commentarial literature, always you begin by directing loving kindness toward oneself first, just to be able to try to lay that foundation, and that can be a bit complicated sometimes in modern, modern Western psyches that are a bit convoluted and messy, that just trying to generate well-being toward oneself. But I think what's important is trying to generate the feeling of well-being, and in ancient Buddhist cultures, as the literature was developing, that was the most logical thing to do, was to wish oneself well first. It was as well as it wasn't complicated with the angst of self-obsession that is such a part of modern culture. But even even if that is a starting point, then you have to shift the starting point and say, well, whoever one can easily generate a feeling of caring, of well-wishing, of kindness towards. It could be a cat. I think of Jeannie today telling me about her new cat. But anything that one has that sense of care and concern and really wishing well for, that's a because you want to pay attention to the feeling and be able to help. So wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, and it's in the Pali. It's also, could just as easily be translating wishing in happiness and in security. May all beings be happy. It's Sukhi no wa kemi no hontu sampe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. That's that taking that sense, that well-wishing, and then may all beings experience that. But again, it's not really that kind of a mushy or hopelessly idealistic, kind of trying to whitewash everything with the emotional tone of love, of loving kindness. But it's more that's something that once we start reflecting on the fact that we ourselves are alive, we experience happiness and we experience suffering. We prefer happiness to suffering, and may I sort of grow or expand into happiness in the same way that's how I feel or hope or wish, the wishes that I have. You realize everyone it has that similar foundation. But it's also, from a Buddhist perspective, I think it's helpful to look again, looking at this, the Buddha's words on loving kindness. Yes, there's wishing and gladness, and it's safe to me, all beings, be at ease. But then the next line is also, well, how are they going to do that? Or what would be a good way to do that? Which is, let none deceive another, nor despise any being at any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. I mean, that's how they do it. That's how and you set that wish, that intention. One, of course, may I not deceive anyone, or may I not wish harm on anyone, but also, may all beings, if they wish for happiness, may they set the conditions. The Buddha never steps out of the karmic process. It always keeps that it's always, that's a fundamental foundation of right view. Is that everything, all beings are the owners of their actions, heirs to their actions, born of their actions, abide supported by their actions. So that may they set the conditions so that they reap those wholesome fruits, those beautiful fruits of loving kindness and well-being, happiness. And similarly, with in that discourse, there's, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. There's interpretations that one should have. One should have the same love that a mother has for their only child. But I don't think that's exactly what the Buddha is saying. He's saying, in the same way that that a mother has this, protects their child, has that love for their own child, you protect those states of mind. Even as a mother protects with her life her child or only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. That's the quality that one protects, is cherishing of all that well-wishing, that quality of metta, looking after the heart of metta, because it's of such tremendous benefit to oneself and tremendous benefit to others. It doesn't take much logic to realize the world would be a whole better place if people would pay attention to this. Just the kind of arguments and wrangling and on personal level and family level and societal level and international level. A bit of well-wishing would go a long way. But certainly one can't think too much about trying to get other people to do it. You have to start with oneself, and that's where the cultivation of loving kindness, cultivation of the momentum of the wholesome and the kusala, it's something that we can take responsibility for. We can do, and we can be cultivating that. So too, be interested in that development, because it does on a moment to moment basis. There is that putting into motion the kusala citta, kusala dhammas. But then, say, the result of that is well-being, but it's also your more refined states of consciousness are easily elicited when one makes much of it. And say using different say phrases or words to help support that aspiration and developing of the heart of loving kindness, the heart of metta. Just that phrase, and I remember years ago myself using that phrase of Sukhino wa kemino hontu sabbe satta bhavantu sukhita in Pali, but then in English the way we translate it, wishing in gladness and in safety may all beings be at ease. It's just turning that over in the mind and directing attention to that. Also, just qualities that say the Buddha himself talked about, the quality of developing metta as a divine abiding. It says the description of abundant, exalted, immeasurable. It's a quality, and so this is an expansive and bright quality of heart, to be directing attention, trying to lead the heart in that direction. To me, one of the most skillful descriptions or tools of developing loving kindness is Bhante Gunaratana's phrases that, and I haven't heard it. I've only heard him use this particular set of things, and it's to me it helps to elicit that sense of of well-wishing, of goodwill, of not getting it confused or complicated with those ideas that we sometimes have of I should be loving everybody, but to be able to, and the way what he used, may I be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to me. May no difficulty come to me. May no problems come to me. May I always meet with spiritual success. May I have the patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May I always meet them with virtue and integrity, kindness and compassion, with mindfulness and wisdom. So it's a very beautiful, directing attention to that quality of metta, but then it's also setting the conditions to be able to maintain that, to develop it, to bring it to maturity, rather than just planting a hopelessly impossible idealistic state of mind that one thinks one should be achieving. These are, say, realizable qualities that sow the seeds of further maturing and developing. So I think to me, it's very, very skillful. And of course, there's one directs that towards oneself, and it's important to realize that that developing of loving kindness as a meditation practice or as a particular tool of cultivation is not about being incredibly proficient at reciting phrases, but eliciting a feeling and then nurturing that feeling. And so that one has to experiment, one has to try different things out and see what works, and then also recognizing that sense of directing it inwards, so that there is that, may I be well, happy, and peaceful. Directing it outwards, may others be well, happy, and peaceful. And there's many different objects of attention, and there's classically, it's just like one directs attention, may my parents be well, happy, and peaceful. May my teachers. So there's beginning with oneself as a foundation, and then directing attention to those who are probably more easily eliciting that quality of wishing for well-being. So taking that object as someone who is already a basis of, say, respect and affection, a sense of warmth. So that one may need to say adjust that accordingly. But that, as I say, traditionally or classically, direct to oneself first, parents, teachers, friends, those one has a friendship with, neutral people who you don't really have much feeling for either one way or the other. But it isn't negative. It's just neutral, and then one, as one builds momentum, then it can be directing toward those who one has difficulty with, a fraught relationship with, and one doesn't have to do all of that. The main thing is one does enough in order to elicit that wholesome, skillful state, kusala citta, the mind of the wholesome, the heart of the wholesome, that is elicited And if one starts to get too conceptual or spinning out or overwhelmed with memories and images because of where one's directing attention, you have to come back and facilitate that sense of lifting up that feeling, that emotion of warmth, of expansive caring, of well-wishing, a sense of kind of a sense of gladness of when that perception's in the heart, that one feels good. So that is the what's called the metta nimitta, the actual feeling, that emotion. And so that one, and then if one's using it in meditation, you're using in the breath, that breathing in that feeling of gladness, of well-wishing, so that it sort of permeates or spreads in the ordinary ways of starting with the heart base as one breathes in, and just feeling that as an emotional tone, letting it spread through the body. Breathing out, sharing it with others. It doesn't necessarily have to be directed. Then breathing in, breathing out, and that feeling of metta, the feeling of well-wishing, the feeling of gladness, that feeling of warmth and caring starts to seep and pervade one's being. So these are that cultivation of a continuity of kusala citta, because inherently the continuity of wholesome mental states also brings clarity. That's I mean, it is wholesome, it's bright, there's a sense of happiness and well-being, but it is also clear. And so being able to use that as a way of steadying and stabilizing the heart. So just put a plug in for Metta Bhavana as a part of one's toolkit to offer that for reflection this evening.